are the former Labour spin doctor Scarlett MccGwire and the editor of Brexit Central, Jonathan Isaby. Welcome to you both. Scarlett, which are you more persuaded by, the argument that we need to stay friendly with the Americans, or that Parliament should consider before any British participation in strikes?
I think it's absolutely vital that Parliament is taken into consideration before we think about what we're going to do about Syria. I mean, I think that it's a really, really difficult issue about how to say to Assad, absolutely no. And the thought of doing it with just a few people, without it being thought, being debated, that we go ahead. I mean, look at our previous. Look at Libya now. Look at Iraq.
But it's not a constitutional obligation, is it?
It's not a constitutional. Well, I mean, I do think that considering that we are not under personal attack, the thought of going into a military engagement without Parliament is appalling.
I mean, I think you're right, it's not a constitutional obligation, but I fear that it's become a convention as a result of what happened 10 or 15 years ago, that Parliament does need to vote on this before any action is taken. I think it's a great shame that Parliament is not sitting this week, because I think if Parliament had been sitting, you would have had a statement probably every afternoon updating MPs on what's going on, and there hasn't been any move to recall MPs from their Eastern recess.
But I mean, this is amazing, this decision. Our time is running out, according to the American timetable. She can't really hold it up, can she?
Well, it's a really difficult one, isn't it? And we're Wednesday now. They could recall the House of Commons tomorrow or Friday, possibly. I don't think they should rule that out. I think it's also a shame that we're in a situation where the Prime Minister basically can't sit down on Privy Council terms with the leader of the opposition and come to a common position on all of this. I think that's a very worrying position we find ourselves in. Now,
this idea for a museum of Brexit, are you in favour of that?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. In fact, if you read Brexit Central this morning, one of the people who conceived the idea has written about it.
What is the idea exactly? That large photographs of Nigel Farage everywhere? Or?
Oh, no,
Syrian refugees no longer allowed in.
I dare say he might figure somewhere. But I think it's a celebration, but also an examination of the 40-odd-year campaign to get Britain out of the European Union. I mean, the Americans are very good at this kind of thing. Obviously, you have all the presidential libraries celebrating politics. In America, the Newseum is a fantastic museum all about news and politics.
Private sector museum.
Exactly. And I'm sure this will be too. Whereas the European Union has a taxpayer-funded museum in Brussels called the House of European History.
Do you see yourself taking kids on a wet half-term to the Museum of Brexit?
No, but as it will cost me to get out and in, I think I'll give it a miss, and I'll leave the Brexiteers to it.
It is quite a funny cartoon, it has to be said. As far as the Open University is concerned, I mean, Alice Thompson pointed out that this really was doing a lot of the things people say we want from higher education, giving people access, long-distance learning, cheaper. Yet it seems to have run into the buffers.
Which is quite surprising, because actually given technology these days, the ability to use YouTube and online seminars, all the rest of it, in order to do these kinds of degrees makes it far more easier than it probably was back in the 1969 when the Open University was founded, and you literally had to turn on BBC Two at 6 in the morning to catch the lecture if you wanted to.
I mean, what we know is, I mean, since 2010, the government has not supported the Open University, and that is absolutely terrible, because for all sorts of people it's a second chance, and we should be thinking. I mean, we should be encouraging more learning, and as Jonathan says, I mean, in this era where you don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or stay up until 2 to watch it, where you can just record, you can get it. It seems so easy.
But perhaps that's part of the problem, that other academic institutions are now doing, I think it's called MOOC, isn't it? Long distance.
Yeah. But actually, the Open University is special, and it should be treated as special rather than have its funds have been cut. We know that there's incredible unhappiness with Peter Horrocks, who runs it, who it was said...
Former BBC and Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they do not have any confidence in him, and he's cutting and saying that people aren't teaching. I mean, I think what's going on is a terrible shame.
I mean, now the government's got the Daily Mail on its case on this, so that won't be very welcome to Mrs May, will it?
Well, indeed not. The Daily Mail is usually pretty successful when it starts a campaign. And of course, the Open University, Alice Thompson mentioned the article, you know, places like Japan and Israel copied it. It was really a world leader in this kind of innovation in terms of education. So, you know, I think it is an institution that we certainly would want to see, you know, regain its prominence, frankly.
And what about the Daily Mail also on the case of British Gas?
Well, I think the Daily Mail are obviously absolutely right, and British Gas will be very worried. I mean, once the Daily Mail is going for you...
Well, I mean, the extraordinary thing is Claire Perry, the minister, actually saying yesterday, I advise people to switch away from British Gas.
Which is what you can do now. This is the beauty of the competition in the sector, that if you don't like that company, you can change.
Have you changed?
No, not yet. But then I don't have British Gas, so...
No, and I should change, and I'm one of these people who's really hopeless. But I am about to change to... I think it's... Islington has a special one for energy that is Angel something or other that is specially for residents.
Right, OK. Well, you've got something to do today, then. Thank you both very much indeed.